Before we dive into this story that will touch your heart, I need to ask you something. Write down in the comments which city you're watching from. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give us a thumbs up. Trust me, this story is worth it. Now, let's begin. The New York City skyline stretched endlessly that October morning. A wall of glass and steel piercing through clouds that threatened rain but never delivered. On the 42nd floor of the tallest building on Fifth Avenue, behind floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park like a living canvas, sat Victoria Sterling. She wasn't just any woman. Her name graced the pages of Fortune 500, appeared on CNN Business, and echoed through boardrooms across the nation. At 47, she'd built a technology empire from nothing, a company valued at billions that had given her everything money could buy: influence, recognition, respect, luxury. Everything except what truly mattered. Victoria wore a cream-colored Armani suit that hugged her frame perfectly. Her dark hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and her hazel eyes surveyed the city with a coldness that hadn't always been there. She'd learned to build walls around her heart, walls as high and impenetrable as the skyscrapers surrounding her. Because behind those corporate achievements, behind those magazine covers and standing ovations at tech conferences, Victoria carried a wound that never healed: the loss of her only daughter, Emma. 8 years old. That's how old her baby was when fate ripped her away. A senseless accident, a split second of distraction while Victoria checked urgent emails on her phone, and Emma ran into the street chasing a soccer ball. The screech of brakes, the scream, the silence that followed. All of it lived in her memory like a horror film on permanent loop, playing every single night before she closed her eyes. Victoria never forgave herself. She banned Emma's name from being spoken in her presence, locked away every photograph, sealed her daughter's bedroom with a key she carried everywhere, and vowed never to feel anything again. If she didn't feel, she couldn't hurt. If she didn't love, she couldn't lose. Suddenly, her phone vibrated on the Italian mahogany desk. A text from Sarah, her executive assistant. "Ms. Sterling, the investors from Boston moved up the meeting. They're already in the conference room." Victoria replied without emotion, "I'll be down in 5 minutes." She stood from her leather chair and walked to her private lounge, picking up a small handbag from the coffee table. It was a limited edition Gucci, just flown in that morning from Milan by express courier. The boutique in Soho had sent it personally. The leather was buttery soft, the shine impeccable, the price equivalent to 3 years' salary for an average American family. But for Victoria, it wasn't just an expensive bag. Inside, along with cash, credit cards, and confidential documents about the biggest merger of her career, she carried something nobody knew about, something she guarded like a sacred secret. Hidden in a concealed compartment of the inner wallet, carefully folded and protected in plastic, was the only photograph she'd kept of Emma. Her daughter smiling with 2 missing baby teeth, hugging a teddy bear she never let go. And next to the photo, a note written in a child's shaky handwriting: "Mommy, you're the best in the whole world. I love you to infinity. Your princess, Emma." Victoria carried that note everywhere. It was the only thing that made her still feel like a mother. The elevator descended slowly from the 42nd floor, soft instrumental music playing that couldn't penetrate the wall of silence in her mind. Victoria closed her eyes for just an instant, and in that rare second, in that fraction of vulnerability she allowed herself once a day, she saw Emma's face, those chubby cheeks, those big brown eyes, that smile that lit up everything. The image appeared in the darkness behind her eyelids, like a sweet ghost, and Victoria pushed it away immediately, with the same violence she used to shut any door leading to her emotions. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. Outside in the marble lobby, her personal driver already waited beside a black armored Range Rover, rear door open. The man, in a dark suit and perfect tie, gave a slight bow. "Miss Sterling, straight to the conference room." or would you prefer to stop by? Victoria was about to get in when her phone buzzed again. This time it was the CFO, a long, complicated message full of technical terms about surprise tax audits and urgent documents she needed to review before the meeting. She stepped away from the vehicle, phone in her right hand, eyes fixed on the screen. In her left hand she held the Gucci bag, gripping it carelessly, like someone carrying something worthless. And without realizing it, while reading line after line of the complicated message about tax deductions and IRS reviews, she placed the bag on the roof of the car. Her attention was completely absorbed by the screen, the world around her, the people, the sounds, the city's movement. None of it existed in that moment. "Mom, shall we go?" The driver opened the door again, with a barely perceptible hint of impatience. "Yes, let's go." "Straight to the conference room," Victoria responded without looking up from her phone, sliding into the aromatic leather back seat. The door closed with that solid sound of German luxury. The vehicle moved slowly through the underground parking, up the ramp toward Fifth Avenue, and merged into the dense morning Manhattan traffic. And on the roof of the black Range Rover, forgotten, abandoned by distraction, the nude-colored Gucci bag sat motionless. The car traveled 3 blocks. At the intersection near the Plaza Hotel, the driver made a smooth right turn, but the bag, with nothing holding it, began to slide. First slowly, then faster, and on the curve, with the vehicle's slight tilt, the Gucci bag fell. It rolled across the grey pavement, bounced once and landed by the curb, meters from a hot dog cart just opening, with the smell of grilled onions mixing with morning exhaust fumes. Nobody noticed. The Range Rover continued on its way. Victoria, inside, kept reading documents on her tablet, and the bag, with its soft nude leather, with its rose gold details, with contents worth more than entire apartments in Queens, lay discarded on the dirty NYC sidewalk. Its monetary value equaled a small fortune, but what nobody knew was that inside that bag was something that could save or destroy the reputation of one of America's most powerful women and the last physical connection Victoria had to her dead daughter. And after minutes that seemed eternal on Destiny's clock, a small figure, thin, almost invisible to the world, walked along the sidewalk. It was a boy, skinny in torn clothes, with black, tangled, dirty hair, with brown skin burned by the sun. He was barely 11 years old, but his face carried the weight of an adult beaten by life. His name was Ethan. He walked slowly, not from laziness or distraction, but because his body simply had no energy. He hadn't eaten anything since yesterday noon. That morning he'd scoured 6 neighborhoods looking for aluminum cans to sell, but only found 3 crushed cans that would give him, at best, maybe $2 at the recycling center. Not enough for a bagel with cream cheese, not enough to silence the roar of his stomach that seemed to be eating itself from the inside. Ethan lived alone, completely alone. His mother abandoned him when he was 3, leaving him at a subway station entrance with a note that said, "I can't handle him. May God watch over him." He didn't remember her face, didn't remember her voice, didn't remember anything about her. His father, that was an even more abstract concept, never existed in his life, not even as a name. He was raised by his grandma Rose, a woman with rough hands and an enormous heart who worked washing other people's clothes to feed him. They lived in a tiny room in the Bronx, no windows, a mattress on the floor, and a hot plate. But it was home, because Grandma Rose hugged him every night, told him stories of heroes and revolutionaries, and always repeated the same thing. "Baby boy, we may be poor, but we never stop being honest. Honesty is the only thing poor folks can pass down without anyone taking it away." But Grandma Rose died 11 months ago, COVID-19. During the pandemic, when hospitals were overwhelmed and poor people died in their homes without oxygen, without medicine, without anything. Ethan watched her shake with fever, watched her sweat until the mattress was soaked, watched her cough blood, and then watched her go still, cold, motionless, eyes open staring at the ceiling. He was 10 years old then. He screamed for help from neighbors, but everyone feared contagion. Nobody came close. He called 911, but they told him no ambulances were available. He waited 3 days beside his grandmother's body, not knowing what to do, crying until he had no tears left. Finally, city services came. They put Grandma Rose in a black bag. No wake, no funeral, no goodbye. Just a truck that took her to a mass grave somewhere Ethan never found. Since that night, he slept alone, under a torn tarp behind a bodega in Washington Heights, between cardboard boxes and garbage bags. He abandoned school because what was the point anymore? Study for what? For whom? Since then, he walked aimlessly, looking for cans, looking for plastic bottles, looking for something, anything that would give him a few dollars for a taco truck meal for bread to stay alive one more day. And that morning, as he walked dragging his bare feet along Fifth Avenue with a torn plastic bag full of 3 crushed cans, his eyes caught something unusual on the ground, something that gleamed faintly under the gray, overcast sky. He stopped, looked both ways like a frightened animal fearing a trap, and there it was, lying next to a lamppost, barely covered by a thin layer of dust. A bag, but not just any bag. It was genuine leather, light color, with a golden logo Ethan didn't recognize, but that clearly meant money. Lots of money. He approached with slow, cautious steps. His heart began beating faster. His hands trembled as he crouched down and touched the bag's smooth surface. It was different from anything he'd ever touched in his life. Soft as butter, delicate, expensive. He looked around again. Nobody seemed to be searching for it. Nobody ran shouting they'd lost something. The street kept its normal rhythm. Cars passing, people rushing to work, street vendors calling out their goods. Ethan opened the golden zipper with shaking fingers, and what he saw inside left him breathless. Bills. Many bills. 50s, hundreds, perfectly folded, new, crisp. He'd never seen so much money together. There was also a leather wallet, credit cards with names engraved in gold, an ID with a photo of an elegant woman, and documents with official corporate seals Ethan didn't understand. But he knew, with that instinct the streets give you, that this wasn't just anything. This was something important, something belonging to someone powerful. Ethan's heart beat so hard he felt it would burst from his chest. He closed the bag quickly, as if the contents burned. He sat on the curb, hugging the bag against his sunken chest, head down. His stomach growled. He'd gone almost 24 hours without eating. That money, even just a part, even just 2 or 3 bills, could feed him a whole week, could buy a sweater because nights were getting cold, could rent a small room even for a few days and sleep in a real bed. Tears began rolling down his dirty cheeks, not from joy, but from desperation, because in his mind echoed, like an eternal refrain, the last words Grandma Rose told him before dying, voice broken by fever. "Ethan, baby, listen to me good. Never forget who you are and what I taught you. Even if you're hungry, even if you're cold, even if the world turns its back, never, never stop being honest. That's your only true wealth, baby. The only one nobody can take away." Ethan didn't know that bag was a Gucci. Didn't know it cost over $3,000. Didn't know how to pronounce the brand or understand what that logo meant. But he knew, with a certainty that hurt his soul, that the bag wasn't his. And if it wasn't his, he had to return it. Even if his stomach was empty, even if he had nowhere to sleep, even if the whole world had abandoned him, Grandma Rose's words were all he had left, and he wouldn't betray them, wouldn't betray her memory. But fate wasn't finished weaving its web. Because across the street at a food cart, 3 men watched him. One of them, a stocky guy with tattoos on his arms and a scar crossing his eyebrow, narrowed his eyes. He elbowed his buddy and pointed with his chin toward Ethan. "Yo, look at that kid. What's he got there?" The other one, thinner but with shark eyes, wiped his hands on greasy jeans. "Looks like an expensive bag, man. too expensive for a dirty little punk. The scarred guy walked toward Ethan with heavy steps. His boots hit the pavement with threatening sound. Ethan saw him coming and his whole body tensed. "Hey, kid," the man said in a rough voice, standing in front of him and blocking the sun. "What you got there? What'd you find?" Ethan pressed the bag against his chest, protecting it like it was the most valuable thing in the world, which in a way it was. "Nothing, sir," he responded in a shaky voice. "Just a plastic bag I found to keep my cans." "You think I'm stupid, kid?" The man crouched down, bringing his face full of patchy beard close to Ethan's. His breath smelled of beer and cigarettes. "That's expensive. Real expensive. Give it here. Now." He extended his hand with authority, with that casual violence used by those accustomed to taking what they want. Ethan jumped up. "No, sir. It's not mine, but it's not yours either. I gotta return it." And without thinking, without planning, just following survival instinct, Ethan ran. He ran with all his might. His bare feet pounded the hot pavement. His lungs burned. His heart seemed to want to escape his chest. He heard shouts behind him. "Grab him! Don't let that little bastard get away!" Ethan crossed the street, dodging cars. Horns blared. Someone yelled a curse at him, but he didn't stop. He ran through narrow alleys, jumped over a flower stand, cut through a flea market, between taco stands and used clothing vendors. Ran until his legs couldn't anymore, until the pain in his side became unbearable, until finally, in a vacant lot full of rubble, he collapsed behind a broken concrete wall. Gasping, trembling, with tears and sweat mixing on his dirty face, Ethan still hugged the bag, like it was his grandmother's last memory, like it was his only connection to the promise he made her. And while catching his breath, chest rising and falling violently, he looked at the bag and whispered, "Grandma, I promise I'm gonna return it. I promise." But what Ethan didn't know, what nobody could imagine, was that right then, across the city, in a luxury conference room with panoramic views, a powerful woman had just discovered her loss, and what would come next would change both their lives forever. But that, nobody imagined that yet. On the 42nd floor of the most imposing building on Fifth Avenue, Victoria Sterling stepped out of the elevator with confident strides, with that certainty that only comes from years of accumulated power. The conference room awaited her. A dark mahogany table surrounded by Italian leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows displaying the city spread out like a chessboard, and 5 investors from Boston dressed in perfect suits and watches that cost more than cars. Everyone stood when she entered. "Miss Sterling, what a pleasure. Thank you for accommodating us on such short notice." The usual verbal bows, the theater of power. Victoria greeted them with calculated handshakes, neither too firm nor too soft, and headed to the head of the table. She opened her leather portfolio, took out her iPad, and then her hand instinctively searched for her bag. The Gucci bag where she kept her limited edition Mont Blanc pen, where she had her reading glasses, where... It wasn't there. Her hand touched air. Victoria looked down. Nothing. She looked around the portfolio. Nothing. A cold sensation began climbing up her spine. "Sarah?" she called to her assistant waiting by the door. "Yes, ma'am? Where's my bag?" Sarah blinked, confused. "Which bag, ma'am?" "My Gucci bag. The nude one with gold details. Did you bring it?" Sarah shook her head, now visibly worried. "Ma'am, you had it when you came down from the elevator. I haven't touched it." Victoria stood from her chair with an abrupt movement that made everyone in the room look at her. Her face, always controlled, always unshakable, showed for the first time in years a crack of real panic. "Call security. Now. Review the cameras from the moment I left my office." The investors glanced at each other, uncomfortable. The eldest cleared his throat. "Ms. Sterling, if you need a moment—" "Yes," Victoria interrupted without looking at him. "Sarah, handle them. Review the preliminary contracts. I'll be back in 10 minutes. But Victoria knew she wouldn't return in 10 minutes. She knew something terrible had happened. She left the conference room with rapid steps, her heels striking the marble like hammer blows. Her mind worked at dizzying speed, reconstructing every step since leaving her office. She'd had it in the elevator. She was certain. She remembered holding it when she read the CFO's message. Then she got in the car. And after that, nothing. A void, a black hole in her memory. She called her driver. "Marcus, did you see my bag when I got in the car?" The man's voice sounded confused on the other end. "Your bag, Mum. I didn't notice. Were you carrying it?" Victoria hung up without responding. Her breathing accelerated. It wasn't just a bag. It wasn't just the $3,000 it cost. Inside were confidential documents from the biggest merger of her career, digital contracts with access codes, her passport, official IDs. If that information fell into her competitors' hands, her reputation could collapse overnight. The company could lose millions. Shareholders might remove her, but there was something else, something that hurt more than all the money and power in the world. Emma's photo, Emma's note, the only tangible thing she had left of her daughter, the only thing she touched every night before sleeping, the only thing that reminded her she was once a mother. If she lost that, she'd lose the last piece of her heart that still beat. Victoria locked herself in her office. She called the building's head of security. "Review all cameras from 9:30 this morning. Every angle, every corner, parking garage, elevators, lobby, street. Look for a nude-colored Gucci bag." She called the Soho boutique. "I need you to activate the digital tracker on the bag you sent me this morning." The answer destroyed her. "Ms. Sterling, that model doesn't have a tracker. It's from the restored vintage collection." She called the police. A board officer told her to file a report online and wait 48 to 72 hours. Victoria hung up without saying goodbye. She sank into her executive chair, staring blankly at the windows. For the first time in years, Victoria Sterling had no control. She couldn't solve this with money, with power, with influence. She could only wait. And the waiting was killing her inside. She closed her eyes and there was Emma again, smiling at her, with that drawing of the two of them holding hands, with that note written in colored pencil. "Mommy, you're the best in the whole world." And Victoria cried. She cried silently, with tears rolling soundlessly, body shaking, soul breaking again like that night in the hospital when they told her Emma would never wake up. Meanwhile, across the city, in that vacant lot full of rubble where Ethan had hidden, the boy stared at the bag with a mixture of fear and determination. He'd managed to escape. The men chasing him had finally given up. Now he was alone, gasping, body aching. He opened the bag again, this time more carefully. He took out the leather wallet. Inside, he found a business card. Victoria Sterling, Chief Executive Officer, Sterling Tech Solutions. There was an address, a phone number, an elegant corporate logo. Ethan could barely read well. He'd only made it to 3rd grade before his grandmother died, but he could decipher basic words. Victoria. He read that name aloud, feeling the strange syllables on his tongue. Victoria. He didn't know who she was, didn't recognize the name. But he sensed, with that instinct the streets give you, that she was someone important, someone rich, someone who must be desperately searching for this bag. He looked deeper inside the wallet. There were credit cards, official IDs with holographic seals. And then, in a small compartment almost hidden, he found something that made him stop. A photograph, laminated, protected with extreme care. The image showed a little girl, about 8 years old, with big eyes and huge smile. She was hugging a teddy bear, and behind the photo, folded in transparent plastic, a note written in a child's handwriting. Ethan didn't understand all the words, but he grasped the essence. "Mommy, I love you. Your Princess Emma." His heart squeezed. This wasn't just an expensive bag from a rich woman. This was a mother's bag, a mother who had lost her daughter, a mother like his who was gone. Ethan closed the wallet with trembling hands. He put everything back in the bag with almost reverent care. And in that moment, with the sun now high burning his back, with hunger eating him from inside, with exhaustion weighing on every muscle, Ethan made a decision. He had to return that bag. No matter how far he had to walk, no matter if security guards kicked him out, no matter if the rich woman didn't even look at him, he had to give it back. Because somewhere, that woman named Victoria was suffering, and Ethan knew what suffering was. He knew it too well. He stood up, brushed the dust off his torn clothes, and started walking. He had no money for the subway, couldn't pay for a bus. So he walked from Washington Heights to Fifth Avenue, almost 3 hours of walking under the merciless sun. His bare feet bled. He had new blisters on top of old blisters. Hunger made him dizzy, but he didn't stop. He asked people on the street for the address on the card. "Do you know where Sterling Tech Solutions is?" Many ignored him. Others mocked him. "You? What are you gonna do there, you dirty kid?" Some even tried to take the bag, but Ethan had learned to run fast, to hide, to survive. Finally, after what seemed like forever, he arrived. The corporate building rose before him like a mountain of glass and steel. It was the tallest, most intimidating, most impossible building Ethan had ever seen. The revolving entrance doors seemed from another world. People in impeccable suits entered and exited hurriedly, phones glued to their ears, not looking at anyone. Ethan stood in front of the entrance, small, dirty, invisible to all of them. His body contrasted violently with the luxury of the place. Like placing an injured bird in the middle of a peacock parade, he took a deep breath, stepped forward, and immediately a firm hand stopped him. Hey, where do you think you're going?" A security guard, a burly man with an impeccable uniform and an unfriendly look, grabbed his shoulder. "This isn't a place for you, kid. Get lost before I call the cops." Ethan pressed the bag against his chest. "Sir, please, I need to get in. I'm here to return something important. It belongs to a lady who works here." The guard laughed sarcastically. "Yeah, right. And I'm the president. Go on, beat it before I throw you out." Ethan felt tears burning in his eyes, but didn't let them fall. "Please, sir, it's the truth. I found this bag on the street. It has important documents. Look." He tried to show him the bag, but the guard pushed him hard. Ethan fell to the ground. The bag almost slipped from his hands, almost rolled toward a storm drain, but he caught it just in time. He sat there on the sidewalk, back against the wall, defeated, exhausted, not knowing what else to do. The guard returned to his post, shaking his head and muttering something about thieving kids. And Ethan stayed there, on the sidewalk, hugging the bag, staring at the impossible building in front of him. The sun began to set. Shadows grew longer. People kept entering and exiting. Nobody glanced at him. He was invisible. He was nobody. And for a moment, Ethan thought about giving up, thought about leaving the bag there and going back to his torn tarp behind the bodega. What did it matter anyway? Nobody would listen to him, nobody would believe him. But then he remembered his grandmother's words. "Honesty is the only thing poor folks can pass down, baby." And he stayed there sitting, waiting for a miracle, waiting for someone, anyone, to give him a chance. 30 minutes passed. An hour. The sky turned orange. Ethan shivered from cold now, because night brought wind and he only had a torn t-shirt. His stomach growled so loud a passerby heard it and looked at him with disgust. But Ethan didn't move. He wouldn't give up. He couldn't. This bag had to reach Victoria's hands, even if it was the last thing he did. And then, when the sun had almost set, when the building's lights began turning on, an older man came out through a side door marked Maintenance Personnel. He wore a cleaning uniform, with a cap and a rag on his shoulder. He had a kind face, with deep wrinkles that spoke of years of honest work. His name was Mr. Anderson, and he'd been cleaning that building for 30 years. He saw Ethan sitting on the sidewalk, shivering, hugging something against his chest, and something in his grandfather's heart stirred. He approached slowly. "Hey, kid, What are you doing here at this hour? You okay? Ethan looked up, eyes red from exhaustion and hunger. Sir, I want to return this bag. It belongs to a lady who works here, a Victoria Sterling. I found it on the street and want to give it back, but the guard won't let me in. Mr. Anderson narrowed his eyes. Victoria Sterling, the CEO? Ethan nodded desperately. Yes, sir, look. He opened the bag slightly, showing the contents, the leather wallet, the cards, the documents with official seals. Mr. Anderson stayed silent for a few seconds. He'd seen many things in his 30 years there. He'd seen executives steal millions. He'd seen secretaries fired for mistakes they didn't make. He'd seen rich kids throw away food while others outside starved. But never had he seen a street kid return something valuable. Wait here, kid. Don't move. Mr. Anderson pulled out his radio and called the administrative area. This is Anderson from maintenance. I need to reach Miss Sterling's office urgently. It's about something she lost. Minutes later, a young woman appeared. She wore an ID hanging from her neck. Sarah Martinez, executive assistant to the CEO. Her brow was furrowed, distrustful. What's this about, Anderson? Mr. Anderson pointed at Ethan. This boy says he found Ms. Sterling's bag. Sarah looked Ethan up and down, with a mixture of disbelief and barely concealed disgust. Him? This kid? But then her eyes fell on the bag Ethan held, and color drained from her face. She recognized the bag instantly. It was the one Ms. Sterling had lost that morning. The one that had caused panic throughout the office. Sarah pulled out her phone with trembling hands and dialed a number. Ms. Sterling? It's Sarah. I think we found your bag. A boy brought it. Says he found it on the street. On the other end, the silence was long. Then a broken voice, almost unrecognizable. What? Where? Where is he? Here, Mom, at the staff entrance. Should I bring it up? Another silence. And then, with a voice that sounded different, more human, more real. No, bring him here. Bring the boy to my office. Sarah hung up and looked at Ethan with new eyes. No longer with contempt, but with something like curiosity. Come with me. Ethan stood trembling. Mr. Anderson put a hand on his shoulder. Easy there, son. You did the right thing. Ethan nodded wordlessly and followed Sarah into the building's interior. They passed through white marble hallways, through offices with glass doors, through empty conference rooms. Everything was so clean, so cold, so different from any place Ethan had been. People passing looked at him with bewilderment, with disgust, as if he were a dirty animal that shouldn't be there. The elevator rose slowly. Numbers changed on the digital display. 10, 20, 30, 42. The door opened with a soft sound. Sarah guided him down a carpeted hallway to double dark wood doors. There was a gold plaque, Chief Executive Officer Victoria Sterling. Sarah knocked twice. Come in, said a female voice from inside. Sarah opened the door and gestured to Ethan. Go ahead. Ethan entered slowly, like someone entering a church. The office was enormous. Giant windows showed the illuminated city. There were expensive paintings on the walls, furniture that looked museum quality, and behind an immense desk, illuminated by a designer lamp, was her, Victoria Sterling, still dressed in her suit, but with her hair loose now, with makeup smudged by tears she hadn't tried to hide, with red, swollen eyes, but with an intensity that pierced everything. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to stop. Victoria looked at that dirty boy, barefoot in torn clothes, with wounds on his legs, with a face gaunt from hunger. But in his hands, held reverently, was her bag, her Gucci bag, intact. Ethan took 2 steps forward and, without saying a word, extended the bag to her. Victoria stood slowly from her chair, walked toward him as if in a trance, took the bag with trembling hands, opened it, checked the contents. Everything was there, the money, the documents, the cards. And then, when she opened the wallet and saw Emma's photo, when she saw the note folded in its place, her eyes filled with tears, tears she wouldn't hold back. They fell silent, rolling down her cheeks. soaking her expensive blouse. She looked at Ethan intently. You found it? Ethan nodded silently. And you didn't take anything? Ethan shook his head slowly. No, ma'am. I just wanted to return it. Victoria closed her eyes. A wave of emotions hit her violently. Gratitude, amazement, pain, relief, and something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. She knelt down. She knelt in front of that 11-year-old boy, lowering to his eye level. Sarah, from the doorway, held her breath. Never, in all her years working there, had she seen Ms. Sterling kneel before anyone. What's your name? Victoria asked in a broken voice. Ethan, ma'am. How old are you? 11. Where do you live, Ethan? And that's when Victoria's world changed forever. Because Ethan, lips trembling, voice barely audible, answered, I don't have a home, ma'am. I live on the streets. And what Victoria asked next, what Ethan told her, would change both their lives in a way nobody, absolutely nobody, could have imagined. Victoria froze, staring at the child. You live on the streets, she repeated, as if the words made no sense coming from her mouth. Ethan nodded, eyes dropping to the polished marble floor. Yes, ma'am. Victoria felt something break inside her. Not a violent rupture, but something deeper, like when a dam finally gives way after years resisting the water's pressure. And your parents? The question escaped before she could stop it. Ethan swallowed hard. His voice was barely a whisper. My mom left me at a subway station when I was 3. I don't know who my dad is. Grandma Rose raised me, but she died from COVID 11 months ago. During the pandemic, there was no oxygen, no hospital. She died in our room. The words dropped into the office like stones in a pond. Sarah, by the door, covered her mouth with her hand. Victoria felt the air escape her lungs. 11 months? You've been alone for 11 months? Ethan nodded. Yes, ma'am. I sleep behind a bodega in Washington Heights on some cardboard. I collect cans to eat. Sometimes I get $2–3, enough for a bagel or maybe some hot dogs from a cart. Victoria closed her eyes. In her mind appeared Emma's image. Her Emma, who never slept anywhere but her bed with Egyptian cotton sheets. Her Emma, who never knew what hunger was. And here was this boy, the same age Emma was when she died, living on the streets, going hungry, completely alone. Why didn't you take the money from the bag? Victoria asked, voice breaking. There was enough to live for months, to rent a room, to... Ethan looked up. His eyes, large and dark, shone with a dignity that didn't match his broken appearance. My grandma always told me that honesty is the only thing poor folks can pass down, ma'am. That even if we're hungry, even if we're cold, even if the world turns its back on us, we never stop being honest. She died telling me that. I can't betray her words. They're all I have left of her. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria felt as if someone had punched her in the stomach. This boy, this dirty, barefoot boy who had nothing, absolutely nothing, had rejected the chance to change his life because his grandmother taught him to be honest. Meanwhile, she, with all her fortune and power, had been living dead inside for years. She'd closed herself to the world, refused to feel, turned herself into a money-making machine because she thought that way she wouldn't suffer anymore. But this boy was showing her something she'd forgotten. That character can't be bought. That dignity has no price. That there are values worth more than all the bills in the world. Victoria stayed kneeling in front of Ethan, tears rolling uncontrolled. She didn't care that Sarah saw her like this. Didn't care that her makeup was ruined. Didn't care about anything except this moment. This boy had returned more than a bag. He'd returned something she thought she'd lost forever. The ability to feel. Ethan, Victoria said, taking the boy's dirty hands between her perfectly manicured ones. Are you hungry right now? Ethan hesitated, then nodded, embarrassed. I haven't eaten since yesterday noon, ma'am. Victoria stood immediately. Sarah, call the executive kitchen. Have them prepare whatever they have. Chicken, rice, vegetables, fruit, everything. Now! Sarah ran out. Victoria guided Ethan to a leather sofa. Sit here, please. Ethan sat carefully, as if afraid to dirty the expensive furniture. Victoria sat across from him on the edge of her desk. "Ethan, I'm going to ask you something very important, and I want you to be completely honest with me, okay?" The boy nodded. "Would you like to have a home, go to school, have clean clothes, food every day, a safe place to sleep?" Ethan's eyes opened wide. "Why are you asking me that, ma'am?" Victoria took a deep breath. What she was about to say would change everything. "Because I want to give you those things. I want you to live with me. I want to send you to school. I want to take care of you." Ethan blinked, confused. "Why?" "You don't know me, ma'am. I'm nobody. I'm just a street kid." "No," Victoria said firmly, with conviction coming from the deepest part of her being. "You're not nobody. You're someone with a heart so big you returned something valuable when you had every reason to keep it. You're someone who honors his grandmother's memory, even when it costs everything. You're someone who deserves a chance." She stood and walked to the window, looking at the illuminated city. "You know what? I had a daughter. Her name was Emma. She was your age when she died. It was my fault. I was distracted with work, with my phone, and she ran into the street. A car hit her. Since that day, I closed my heart. Didn't want to feel anything anymore because feeling hurt too much." She turned around, tears shining in her eyes. "But today, when I opened my bag and saw Emma's photo untouched, when I saw you hadn't taken anything, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like my daughter was giving me a sign, telling me it's not too late to be a mother again." Ethan didn't know what to say. This was all too much. Hours ago, he was on the street looking for cans. Now a millionaire woman was offering him a new life. "Ma'am, I don't know if I deserve—" "You do deserve," Victoria interrupted firmly. "You deserve more than the world has given you, and if you let me, I want to give you what my daughter can't receive anymore. Love, care, a home." At that moment, Sarah returned with a tray full of food. Roasted chicken, white rice, fresh salad, natural orange juice, warm bread. The aroma filled the office. Ethan looked at the food with wide eyes. It was more food than he'd seen in months. "Eat," Victoria said softly. "Eat everything you want. This is your home now." Ethan picked up the fork with trembling hands. He tasted the chicken. The flavor exploded in his mouth. Tears began rolling down his cheeks as he ate. They weren't tears of sadness, but something more complex. Relief, gratitude, disbelief. Victoria watched him silently, her own food untouched on the plate. And in that moment, while watching that boy eat like it was his last meal, she made a decision. She wouldn't just give him food and shelter. She'd give him everything. She'd give him the love her daughter could no longer receive. The next day, Victoria activated her entire network of influence. She called her personal attorney. "Patricia, I need to start a complete investigation on a boy. Ethan, 11 years old, lived with his grandma Rose, who died from COVID. I need to verify his entire story. Parents, relatives, medical records, everything." Ms. Patricia Moore, an efficient woman with 30 years of experience, took the case personally. Within 48 hours, she had a complete file. The results confirmed every word Ethan said. Registered mother, Jennifer Martinez. Last known address, non-existent. Abandoned the minor in 2017. Father, unknown, not registered. Grandmother Rose Martinez. Deceased, January 15, 2024, from COVID-19 complications. Body claimed by city services, buried in Potter's Field. The child was left completely orphaned, no close relatives, no support system. Survived on the streets for 11 months. School records, 3rd grade, suspended for absence in March 2024. Victoria read the file with a heavy heart. He hadn't lied, not a single word. This boy had lived through hell and still chose to be honest. "Patricia, start temporary foster care proceedings immediately and simultaneously prepare adoption papers." Patricia looked at her, surprised. "Adoption, Victoria? Are you sure? It's a long, complicated process. I don't care how long it takes." Victoria said with determination. "That boy is going to be my son." Meanwhile, Ethan lived his first week in Victoria's home like a dream. The house in the Upper East Side was massive. 3 floors, garden with fountain, pool, rooms with private bathrooms. They gave him the largest guest room with a king bed, television, closet full of new clothes. Ethan couldn't believe it. The first night he slept on the floor because the bed seemed too soft, too unreal. Victoria found him like that at dawn and cried silently. They bought him new clothes, sneakers, pants, shirts, sweaters. Victoria's nutritionist designed a special meal plan to help him gain weight. The family doctor examined him completely. Severe malnutrition, anemia, intestinal parasites, foot infections. But nothing serious, nothing permanent. With care and time, he'd recover fully. Victoria hired a private tutor to bring him up to grade level before enrolling him in school. Ethan absorbed knowledge like a sponge. He was intelligent, had exceptional memory. In 2 weeks, he was reading fluently. In a month, solving 4th grade math problems. The tutor reported to Victoria with amazement. "This boy is brilliant, he just needed an opportunity." But not everything was easy. Ethan had nightmares. He'd wake up screaming, looking for his grandmother. Victoria would run to his room, hug him, rock him like she did with Emma. "I'm here, Ethan. You're safe. Nobody's going to hurt you." The boy would cling to her, trembling. "I was scared it was a dream, Mom, that I'd wake up on the street again." "It's not a dream," Victoria would whisper. "This is real, and I'm never leaving you." Little by little, Ethan began calling her Mom Victoria. The first time he did it, Victoria was making coffee in the kitchen. Ethan came down the stairs and said shyly, "Good morning, Mom Victoria." She froze. The cup almost fell from her hands. She turned slowly, eyes shining. "What did you say?" Ethan got nervous. "Sorry, ma'am, if you don't want me to call you that." "No," Victoria interrupted, walking toward him and kneeling. "You can call me that. Please call me that." Months passed. In September, Ethan was enrolled in a private middle school in Manhattan. Victoria could have put him in the most expensive schools, but chose one where kids came from working families, where the value of effort was still taught. She didn't want Ethan to lose his humility, his essence. The first day of school, Victoria took him personally. She watched him enter with his new uniform, his backpack full of supplies, shoes that didn't hurt, and she cried in the car on the way home, cried from happiness. But school wasn't easy at first. Kids immediately noticed Ethan was different. He arrived in a Mercedes, but talked like a kid from the streets, brought an expensive lunchbox, but ate like it was his last meal. Some began mocking him. "Look at the charity case. Is it true you used to live on the street? You're only here because the lady feels sorry for you." The words hurt more than fists. One day during recess, a chubby kid whose father owned a hedge fund pushed Ethan. "You don't belong here. You're not one of us. You're just passing through." Ethan fell to the ground. His knee bled. The other kids laughed. Ethan stood slowly. He looked the chubby kid straight in the eyes, and with a calm but firm voice said, "You're right. I was from the streets. But even though I'm not rich kid born, I'm not a liar, and I don't take what isn't mine. That makes me better than you, who cheated off Jessica's test last week." The silence was total. The chubby kid turned pale. Everyone knew it was true. A teacher intervened, but Ethan's words had already echoed, and little by little, kids began seeing him differently, not as the charity case, but as someone with principles, someone brave, someone honest. At home, the relationship between Victoria and Ethan deepened. She taught him things he never learned on the street: table manners, how to speak in public, how to behave in different situations. But Ethan also taught her. He taught her to laugh again, to play, to watch movies without checking her phone, to cook together on Sundays, to live, not just exist. One night while having dinner, Ethan asked timidly, "Mom Victoria, can I ask you something about Emma?" Victoria tensed. Nobody had spoken that name in her presence for years. but she took a deep breath. "Yes, Ethan, you can ask me anything." What was she like? Victoria smiled for the first time when talking about her daughter. She was beautiful, had curly hair, big eyes. She loved to dance and draw. She drew all the time. "Do you think she'd be mad that I'm here?" The question pierced Victoria. "Mad? Why?" "Because I'm taking her place." Victoria put down her silverware and walked to Ethan. She hugged him tight. "Ethan, listen to me carefully. You're not taking anyone's place. Emma will always be my daughter, and you're also my son. A mother's heart isn't like a room with limited space. It's like the universe. There's always room for more love. Emma would be happy you're here, I'm sure of that." And in that embrace, something healed, both in Victoria and in Ethan. Both had lost the people they loved most. Both had been alone, broken, lost, but they found each other. And together, they began rebuilding themselves. But what would come next, what destiny still had prepared for them, would surpass any expectation, and Victoria's final decision would seal their fate forever. 6 months had passed since that afternoon when Ethan walked into Victoria's office with the Gucci bag in his hands. 6 months in which everything changed. Ethan was no longer that skinny, scared street kid. Now he had full cheeks, clean trimmed hair, an impeccable uniform. But most importantly, he had light in his eyes. That light only hope gives: security, love. At school, Ethan had become one of the top students, not because he was the smartest, but because he valued every learning opportunity as the gift it was. His teachers adored him. His classmates, after those difficult first months, respected him. Some even sought him out for homework help. And Ethan, with that generosity he learned from Grandma Rose, helped everyone without asking anything in return. But something remained pending. Something Victoria had been secretly preparing for months: the adoption proceedings. Attorney Patricia had worked tirelessly, navigating the bureaucratic maze of foster care services, psychological evaluations, home visits, socio-economic studies, all so that legally, officially, Ethan could carry the Sterling name, so he could be, before the law and before God, her son. It was a Friday in March. New York's sky was clear, rare for that time of year. Victoria had taken the day off from the office, something she never did. She told Ethan they had an important appointment, but didn't explain what it was about. In the car, heading downtown, Ethan asked nervously, "Mom, Victoria, did I do something wrong? Is that why we're going to this appointment?" Victoria looked at him through the rearview mirror and smiled with that smile that now came naturally, not forced. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Quite the opposite. You did everything right." They arrived at a gray government building with American flags waving at the entrance, family court offices. They went up to the 3rd floor, where a small waiting room received them. There were other families there. Couples waiting to adopt, children waiting to be adopted, social workers with thick folders. The atmosphere was tense, but hopeful. Patricia was already there, with her leather briefcase and a reassuring smile. "Everything's ready, Victoria. Just the final hearing with the judge." Ethan looked at everything with wide eyes, not fully understanding what was happening. Victoria knelt in front of him, taking his hands. "Ethan, remember when I told you I wanted to take care of you? That I wanted you to live with me forever?" Ethan nodded. "Well, today's the day that becomes official. Today, if you want, if you accept, you're going to legally be my son. You're going to carry my last name. You're going to be Ethan Sterling." Ethan's eyes filled with tears instantly. "Really? It's not a lie?" "It's not a lie, my love. It's real. But I need you to tell me if you want this, because this is a decision we make together." Ethan couldn't speak. He just nodded desperately while tears rolled. And then, for the first time, he said the words Victoria had been waiting months to hear. "Yes, I want to, Mom. I want to be your son. I want to call you Mom without having to say Victoria after. Just Mom." Victoria hugged him so tight she almost couldn't breathe. She was crying too, but these were tears of pure joy. Then let's go. Let's make it official. They entered a small room with a long table and the American flag in the corner. The judge, a woman around 60 with gray hair pulled back and reading glasses, received them kindly. "Ms. Sterling, young Ethan, please come in." The hearing was simple, but emotional. The judge reviewed the documents, confirmed all legal requirements were met, and then addressed Ethan directly. "Young man, I need to ask you something very important, and I need you to be completely honest with me, okay?" Ethan nodded nervously. "Do you want Ms. Victoria Sterling to be your adoptive mother? Do you understand what that means? That she'll be responsible for you, that you'll be her legal son, that you'll carry her last name and have all the rights of a biological child?" Ethan straightened in his chair. He looked at the judge with those dark eyes now shining with determination. "Yes, Your Honor. Yes, I want to. She saved me when I had nothing. She gave me a home, food, school, but more importantly, she gave me love. She made me feel I'm worth something, that I deserve to be happy, and I promise to be the best son I can be. I promise to study, behave well, and make her proud." The judge smiled. Even she, who had seen hundreds of these cases, was moved. "Very well. Then by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I hereby legally establish this adoption. Ethan, from this moment on, your full name is Ethan Sterling, Victoria Sterling. From this moment on, you are legally this young man's mother." She took a stamp, pressed it on the official document, and said, "Congratulations to you both." The world seemed to stop. Victoria and Ethan looked at each other, and then Ethan said, with a clear voice full of emotion, "Thank you, Mom." "Not Mom Victoria, just Mom." Victoria hugged him, crying, "Thank you, my son. Thank you for giving me life back." Patricia cried discreetly in her corner. The judge removed her glasses to wipe her eyes, and in that small gray room, a new family was officially born. They left the building holding hands. Ethan carried in his other hand the adoption certificate, his new birth certificate where he appeared as Victoria Sterling's son. He looked at it every 2 minutes as if afraid it would fade. In the car, Victoria had one more surprise. "There's someone I want you to meet." Ethan looked at her confused. "Who?" "You'll see." They drove toward the Bronx, passed through neighborhoods, past old buildings, until reaching a quiet, spacious cemetery. Woodlawn Cemetery. Victoria parked and guided Ethan to a section under an oak tree, and there, on a white marble headstone with golden letters, was the name Emma Sterling, 2012-2020. "Beloved daughter, your light still shines." Victoria knelt in front of the grave. Ethan stood, not knowing what to do. "Emma, my love," Victoria said in a soft voice, "I want to introduce you to someone. This is Ethan. He's your brother now. I officially adopted him today." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "I know you're not here physically, but I know you're watching me. And I want you to know that Ethan isn't taking your place. Nobody ever could, but he helped me remember how to be a mom again. He helped me heal." She stood and put a hand on Ethan's shoulder, want to say something to her. Ethan hesitated. He'd never talked to someone dead, but he knelt by the grave and said in a trembling voice, "Hi, Emma, I'm Ethan. I didn't know you, but I know you were very special. Your mom loves you so much, and I promise to take care of her. I promise to be a good brother, even though you're not here. And I promise never to forget that thanks to you, thanks to your photo in that bag, my life changed." Victoria cried silently. She placed fresh flowers on the grave, white roses that were Emma's favorites. And the three of them, the daughter who left, the mother who healed, and the son who arrived, were united in that moment. A broken family that reassembled itself differently, but no less real. That night at home, Victoria organized a small celebration. She invited Mr. Anderson, the guard who helped Ethan that first day. She invited Patricia, the attorney, Sarah, her assistant, Ethan's teachers. It was an intimate gathering, but full of meaning. In the living room, Victoria gave a short speech. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible. 6 months ago, I lost a bag. I thought it was the worst day of my life, but it turned out to be the best because that bag brought me my son." She looked at Ethan with shining eyes. "Ethan, you taught me something I'd forgotten. That honesty has value. That dignity can't be bought. That love can be born in the most unexpected places. You returned more than a bag that day. You returned my ability to love." Ethan, shy but happy, responded, "And you gave me more than a house, Mum. You gave me a reason to believe I deserve good things." The guests applauded. Mr. Anderson wiped tears with his handkerchief. Patricia smiled with pride. Sarah took photos non-stop. And on the wall, next to a framed photo of Emma, Victoria hung a new photo, her and Ethan on adoption day, embracing, smiling, complete. The following months were about adjustment. Ethan still had occasional nightmares, but fewer each time. Victoria still missed Emma, but the pain was no longer paralyzing. It was a sweet pain, a loving memory, not an open wound. Together, they built a routine. Breakfasts together before school, dinners without phones at the table, movie Sundays with popcorn, beach vacations, laughter, hugs, life. At school, when asked to talk about his family and class, Ethan said proudly, "My mom is the strongest woman I know. She lost her daughter, but didn't give up. She adopted me and gave me everything, and I'm going to spend my life trying to live up to that love." His classmates no longer mocked him. Now they admired him. 1 year after the adoption, the school organized an essay contest about values. The theme was honesty. Ethan wrote about the day he found the Gucci bag, wrote about the hunger he felt, the temptation to take the money, his grandmother's words, wrote about how a 2-second decision changed his entire life. The essay won first place. And when Ethan went on stage to receive the award, Victoria was in the front row, crying with pride. 2 years later, on Ethan's 13th birthday, Victoria gave him a special gift, a small box wrapped in gold paper. Ethan opened it curiously. Inside was a gold medal with an inscription, "For Ethan, the son destiny sent me. Your honesty saved me. Your love healed me. Mom." Ethan hugged Victoria, crying, "I love you, Mom. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." And Victoria, voice breaking but happy, responded, "I love you more, my son. Thank you for teaching me that life always gives second chances. You just have to be ready to take them." On a quiet night, years later, Ethan, now a teenager, found Victoria in the study, looking at old photos. There were photos of Emma everywhere. Ethan sat next to her. "Do you miss her a lot?" Victoria nodded. "Every day. But it doesn't hurt like before. Now I can remember her and smile." Ethan picked up a photo where Emma hugged her teddy bear. "Do you think she's okay with me being here?" Victoria hugged him. "Ethan, I stopped asking myself that long ago. I know Emma's happy wherever she is. And I know that somehow she made us find each other. That bag didn't get lost by accident. You didn't find it by accident. Everything happened for a reason, so 2 broken souls could heal together." Ethan smiled. "Then I guess I owe a Gucci bag for my family." Victoria laughed. "Yes, the most expensive and most valuable bag I ever bought, because it brought me you." A ding, and there, in that study full of memories and love, a mother and her adopted son, united not by blood, but by something stronger, by an honest decision and an open heart, celebrated the miracle of their meeting. Because sometimes the most valuable things aren't bought, they're found. And what Ethan found on that street wasn't just a bag, it was his destiny. And what Victoria found wasn't just an honest boy, it was her reason to live again. And so ends this story. The story of a lost bag and a found boy, of a broken mother and an abandoned son, of 2 souls who found each other when they needed it most and built something beautiful, a family. Now tell me, what would you have done in Ethan's place? Would you have returned the bag hungry and homeless? Write in the comments what city you're watching from and what you thought of this story. Leave us your thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this message with someone who needs to remember that honesty always pays off. Because in the end, what we give to the world gives back multiplied. See you in the next story.